because I usually do. I just don't pay any attention. I can't pay any attention, like it doesn't come up. But
Yeah.
for some reason, when it was starting here earlier, it was telling me that I needed to whatever.
Or something. Yeah.
I had to log in, and then I had to get approved on that. So
Mhm.
whatever. So that's what stopped us. All right. So now there you go. We're over here. We're on both. We got all sorts of stuff coming on.
There we
Oh,
go.
I know. We're here. It's all good. Life is good. Hi, everybody who's coming in. I was honestly not afraid. I was not afraid. We're looking at it. I'm starting off
We're off to a good start.
third. That's the third right there. I was worried we weren't going to be able to do it tonight. My car broke down, but we're good. I am here with Ashley from Ashwood and Hawke. So as everyone is coming in, we're going to start off with my favorite. Should I wait for a couple people? I don't know. I never know what to do. So, hi, Eric. So what happens is sometimes the other thing is we'll go for an hour here, and then Instagram will sometimes end. I don't know. Instagram fickle.
That makes
No sense.
all about everything. So
Right.
why not about lives?
So let's do this. My question, like I said, is what is your origin story? You are a scroll saw artist that makes absolutely gorgeous work. Every time I see it, I'm blown away. And I love the desk. I want to talk about the big desk that you just did too.
Yes.
Let's hear your origin story.
Okay. I actually was a hairstylist in I call it my previous life. So I was licensed as a hairstylist for over a decade, and that was kind of my creative path. And then once I had kids, I didn't really, and I bounced around and moved so much that I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I just want to build a clientele over and over again in different states, but I still wanted to do something creative. And I remember scrolling through Instagram one day and I saw, I think it was Angela Rose Home had a like 10-second reel about this wall hanging mosaic. And I was like, how hard can it be? I'm going to do that. So I went and bought everything. My husband at the time had a miter saw. So I was like, okay, perfect. So I had a small little hand-me-down miter saw, a jigsaw, and a plastic folding table. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out and go. I called my brother-in-law because I'm sitting there like, I can't figure out how to make the angles make a triangle. Like it wasn't, I'm like, I don't know how to cut them. Where am I cutting? He goes, just cut everything on a 45. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just went from there and I built that one based off of that quick 10-minute tutorial. And then I made another one. And actually, no, I hadn't even made another one. I think I posted that one on my Facebook, maybe. And a friend of mine back in California was like, hey, I was just about to order this off of Etsy. Would you want to make it for me anyways? So I was like, sure, why not? So my very first commission was a 5-foot by 3-foot mosaic.
Okay.
That I had so much fun. I had no idea how to quote. I had no idea how to ship. I like kind of came up with a loose plan. And then when it came to shipping, oh my gosh, I went to Home Depot and got a big TV moving box. And I packaged it up and I walked it into UPS. It cost me over $300 to ship it.
Oh my gosh.
Because I had to go all the way to California and it was like 5-foot by 3-foot.
Yeah.
Getting way off course here as far as my origin story, but that was the first commission that I ever did. And then I feel like it kind of just went from there. I caught the bug and I started with mosaics. And then I did a couple small festivals and met people, networked that way, started doing more custom signs. Then I saw scroll saw and I was like, ooh, that looks fun. So I think I found a used Delta.
Okay.
And I tried that first. And I mean, you know how it goes. You start with one tool and then you kind of see all these other things and ping pong. And now I have a full wood shop.
That's awesome. So in terms, I got to take a step back.
Yeah.
Humble beginnings, as Victor Woodforge said. Exactly. That's where we all start. We all start with nothing and then build up. Real quick, so it cost $300 to ship it. How much did you charge for the piece?
900.
Yeah, yeah, that hurts. That hurts.
But I still was so excited because I remember I used some of that money to go buy myself my very first table saw. So I
Yeah,
had like a small little Ryobi contractor saw. And then to me, I was still like, I mean, maybe I lost money, but I still made like,
right.
I posted one thing and I
Yeah,
got a sale. If I can do that, then I can do more. And it felt like I got that confidence boost of like, oh, people like this. I can do
right.
this.
Right. Yeah, I always said when I went to art shows and shows and you would sell your stuff, I always
Mhm.
said it was part of it is being a little bit of an ego boost. You're like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm here selling stuff, and on the days that you don't sell stuff, you're like, oh, I guess my work is no
gotta
good.
throw in the towel.
Right, right. My work is no good, or my work is good and they like me.
Right. And I mean, that's the life of an artist too. I feel like anything that we do, we're always going to be judging ourselves the hardest. But if we can get that like external validation and we know that other people are liking what we're doing, it's always going to feel good.
Right. I hate being like that. I am. I have to admit it, And I talk to some people on here and they're like, yeah, I don't mind the negative comments. I'm like, yeah, but it gets to me a little bit. I don't, I'm showing myself.
Yeah. It's, I think, and it's probably a little bit different as a female also, the negative comments that I feel like we get are a little different. And so it's not necessarily always about the work. It's about something that somebody doesn't like about our appearance because we're a woman operating a power tool and that gives
Right.
people on the internet the
Right.
right to discuss whatever they want, apparently.
Right.
Um, so I kind of do take them with a grain of salt. And I also think in social media world, anybody engaging on your post is like, okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for that. Like say what you want to say, but I don't know you in real life. And if you have opinions on what it is that I'm actually doing, then you're welcome to try.
Well, I hate to admit this, but the number of times that I've seen comments on female content creator makers that
Yeah.
really,
Or is your husband letting you use all his tools?
yeah, that's the other one. Like that bothers me. I'm like, why would you would never say that to a person in person?
No, never. Although I did get a funny comment at one of the very first like festivals that I did where I had a booth and I was selling. I had this little old man walk in and he's looking around at all my stuff. He's like, "You make all this?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You should probably try painting." And I was like, "Why?" He goes, "It's just a lot easier on your body." I was like, I actually can't paint to save life, but thank you.
I hate painting. God, that's the one thing I absolutely.
I did not get the drawing bug, the artistic. I can trace really well, but I can't freehand draw. There's no way.
No, I have friends of mine so I always joke with him because he will draw a line and just curve it and everything. You're like, at the end of it, you go, wow, I can actually see exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And we laugh, and I draw a line, and it looks like a toddler scribbled on the wall.
Yeah. Some people just get it. My oldest son has the art bug. He can draw better than I can. Sometimes he's like, "Mom, will you help me with this?" I was like, "No, you do it better than I do."
You're too advanced for me. All right, so you made your first mosaic. Let me ask you a question. Taking a sidestep again, when you do your mosaics, how do you plan them out? Like this is one of the things I've thought about, and especially it's one thing if it's a small one, but if you have this long 5 by 4, hey
Yeah.
Joe, like how do you plan that? How do you set that up?
I've done it a couple different ways, but what really works the best for me is having a plan as far as like the colors that I want to use or what species I'm going to use. So we'll take the desk that I just did. That one was massive. That was like
Yeah,
80 inches by 3 feet,
right.
essentially. I knew I was using white oak and walnut, and those were going to be the only two colors that I was using in the whole mosaic. So I just milled up all my strips for that and had that all prepared. And then I start in the middle. And I almost always start with an X pattern in the middle, unless I'm doing something different. But that's kind of just an easy way to put down your center pieces. And then I just kind of go from there. Sometimes I'm staring at it for 30 minutes before I actually put a piece down. Other times I've ripped up half of a mosaic before because I hated it. But starting in the middle and then just working your way out has really been the best way for me. Sometimes I'll just get into a flen. See, here are the comments that I was talking about. We can just make that one go away.
Yep. Yeah, I
funny. I don't even want to give it attention, but so I start in the middle and then I just work from there.
So yeah, and I'm sorry, like I try to monitor. I don't like talking about people being assholes. Excuse my language. So one of the things that do you oof, symmetry? That's what I was thinking about. Like when you're thinking about these things, you really try to go symmetrical. Do you?
Yes. So if you think of a mosaic in 4 different quadrants, so we have like upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. I'm usually going to have them matching. Actually, let me grab one really quick.
Yeah.
I have them sitting right here.
And hi, Ryan, and everyone else who's over there. I hope you guys are going well. Oh, thank you. Hey, Dan. I had to try and block. There we go.
This one has splines in it, so it looks a little funky. But you can see, like, if you look at the center line here, this is going to match there. But I usually start and I will do left and right.
Okay.
Or I'll do top and bottom, and then I'll fill in the left and the right.
Okay. I love that. That looks great. See, that's always the thing that gets me is trying to figure out the best way to set it up.
Yeah, I think if you are trying to do like all 4 quadrants at one time, it can be overwhelming. So I'll usually just do top and bottom, and I'll get a good starting point or like a good idea of where I want it to go. And then once I see where that's going, I can start to fill in the other sides. But on a small one like that, I would just do top and bottom complete and then work out the left and the right.
Well, that's nice. Do you have like a preferred width and like a? Okay,
yeah.
let's start me at the beginning.
Okay,
right?
So in the beginning, I actually would go to Menards online because I don't have one close to me, and you can order lath already pre-cut from Menards. It was like $50 for I think 50 strips.
Okay.
And they were about 1.25 inches wide, 1/4 inch thick. Sometimes half of them would be like rotten or terrible or crooked or bent. But in the beginning, when I didn't really have the tools to mill up a board, it worked. And I was doing a lot more painting and staining there. But now I just cut down my strips because I'm doing more hardwoods. So I usually will go about 1 inch, 3/4 to 1 inch, depending on how, I don't know how I'm feeling, but almost always 1/4 inch thick and about 3/4 to 1 inch wide.
Okay. So what other, just again, this is just for me right now, because I did a couple of them a while back, but it's been a while. What other types of guidelines do you give yourself when you're doing these? So you're doing the quadrants, you're doing the widths.
I don't really think that there's any other guidelines. I have started chamfering the edges in between each piece, which I think really helps dimension to help see the difference between the pieces. So it's not all flat.
Right.
So I'm almost always doing that as well. But I don't.
It sounds like, I mean, it sounds nice. Now, what do you use for the backer? Do you use like MDF? Do you use plywood?
Either or. I found that for the most part, MDF is going to stay flat more than plywood. But like on the bookcase that I did, I just used a big sheet of plywood because I had bought so much ply to make all the cabinets.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So, and then you glue it in and you nail it as well, or?
I don't nail anymore. I don't nail every single piece. I don't think it's necessary. I think wood glue is going to hold almost all the pieces, but I will, when I set my quadrant down, I will nail that first piece there to make sure my angles don't get funky, because typically I'm not framing until afterwards. So
Right.
when you set a piece, it's running off the edge. Your angles can be really out of whack if you just have glue, and they can kind of shift.
Right.
So I nail those down to make sure nothing gets crazy. And then if I'm ever changing directions or feel like I need that like security that this piece isn't going to move, I'll nail those down. But for the most part, I just glue it.
Sense. So the other question we got over here is, when buying material for those backers, do you aim for best possible hardwood, or do you keep cost in mind?
I keep cost in mind, but I think it also depends on the actual, like, what the piece is going to be. Sometimes I want the quarter sawn white oak because I want to see that like stripe that's within it.
Right.
So I'm going to spend a little bit more to get that.
That makes sense.
I'm not going to go pick a super curly piece of walnut to cut it up into strips, because
Right.
the way that I cut the strips, actually, I'm cutting the interior part of the board. So
Right.
the top of the board is actually going to be the side of my mosaic. You're not even going to see that.
What's your, again, just because I'm curious, what's your favorite wood to use?
White oak right now.
I love the look of white oak. I mean, it finishes up well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Joe. Joe, you should all hit that like button. I appreciate that. And Logan, I'm confused because Logan Newman on Instagram said hi, but I'm here. How am I there? I don't know.
Weird.
It's always throws me. All right. So you start off. You've done your mosaic. You sold your first one. You shipped it out.
Yeah.
And then you saw the jigsaw. Talk to us about how you got into scrolls. Is that one of the kids?
Yeah. What's up, baby? Mama's on her call. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi. Say hi to everyone. What's your name?
Everett.
Everett. That's a beautiful name. I love that.
Go back inside, okay?
Hey, Everett.
Popcorn.
Do you like Mom's work?
Here, he asked you a question. Come here.
What?
Do you like Mom's work?
Yes.
You
What
like
do you
to
like?
work with mommy?
Yes.
What's your favorite tool to use in the shop?
I never used it with that.
Yes, you have. What's that one right there?
Oh, the store saw.
Ooh, it's
You
a big guy.
Roll saw.
I don't even know how to use that. I don't even know how to use a scroll saw. You're better.
He says, I do.
Mm-hmm. He's a lucky
right.
kid.
Go back inside, okay? Bubble gum? Okay, sure. We'll get it out of the counter or out of the cabinet. Ask brother to help you.
As I said earlier, I was telling this story earlier. When my son turned 20 yesterday. When he had I think it was his 11th birthday. Does he like math like Logan? I don't like math. Leave me alone. Yeah. So 18 plus 2. I know that's my son's birthday now. So I had a table I was making for the house, and I asked my son, I'm like, do you want me to finish the table? I can put it aside. We can just put something up. He goes, no, Dad, I want everyone to see your work because I'm so proud of you. I was like, oh, yeah, they're so cute. So actually, and this begs my question. I was going to ask you this before we get into the scroll saw art. Where did the name Ashwood and Hawke come from?
That one was, so Ashley is my name, obviously. So that's where Ashwood came from, because I thought that would be a fun play on words. And then Hawke is actually Everett's middle name.
Okay.
My dad always loved hawks. I mean, he still does. But I remember growing up as a kid, every time he'd see one, he'd point and be like, hawk, there's a hawk, there's a hawk. His very first tattoo, I think it's his tattoo right now, is a hawk. So that's kind of where that came from too. And I just decided to turn it into the business name also.
That's nice. I like that. So we have another question before we get into your scroll saw stuff. If you had 2 tips for selling or making, you choose, what would they be?
Mm. I think it's really important to stay in your own lane. I mean, obviously, like our skills are always going to expand the things that we're going to build. Like for me, especially, I know I love to just learn and create different things. I feel like I can never really find a niche, but like find what you like to and make that. Don't worry about what everybody else is making. Because if you constantly are playing the like, well, so and so is making this, so I want to make that game, I don't think you're ever going to really find your voice as an artist. And then that's going to be harder for people to actually want to purchase from you. They're like, what do you actually do? Or why would I buy that from you when so and so is also making it?
Yeah, I mean that's that. I think that's the hardest part. The other thing I think that goes along with that is sort of focusing in on what people have responded to, because I think the hard part is you're like, I don't really want to make this. I want to make that. But people are buying this.
Yeah, that's hard. I had, what was I making? Oh, I made my little, I called them love triangles. They were just a triangle. I mean, I put a book on them, basically. It was like to say your place on your book. You put it on your nightstand. I thought love triangles was a funny name because it's like a trope in a book. They took off. I had one girl, this was like 2 years ago, I think. A girl on Instagram found it, or maybe found it on Pinterest. I don't remember, but she has a YouTube. And so she posted one video talking about the love triangle in her YouTube. I think I sold 80 of them over like a 3-month time period. And I was like, I'm so done. I don't want to make these anymore. Like it, but I had sold them all. I had to make them, but I couldn't make them fast enough to like keep on hand. They were selling so fast. And now, like if I get an order for 1 or 2, it's not as bad. I don't mind making them. But when I was doing 40 of them at a time and it was all that covered my, like I couldn't work on anything else.
Right.
There was a part of me that was like, I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? I should take this off my website. But then it's like, no, wait, actually they're selling. I shouldn't do that.
It's tough. We talked about this a little bit last week. It's hard when you have those big orders and you have so many, and that's all you're working on, and you have so many different things that you want to do. That's really tough. Another question says, seems like you have a bunch of friends who make sort of similar items. Do you guys ever feel like you're stepping on each other's toes?
I personally don't think so. I think I've found a really great group of friends that we all encourage each other, and we all have different clientele. Like it seems like there would be a lot of crossover, because if you look at just us, we like, maybe it seems like a tight-knit group, but like we're all over the place, and our audiences are completely different too. Sure, there's overlap, but for the most part, I think there's room for everybody. I really do. You know, I've had a situation once before where somebody came to me for a sign, but I knew they had also talked to somebody else about a sign. And my thought in that moment is like, I'm going to check in and just be like, hey, is this cool with you? Do you care? Did it not work for you? What, like, I just want to make sure. Or I've had somebody come to me and say, hey, I want you to make this sign. And it's a picture of one of my friend's signs. I'm like, well, I could do it a little differently, but I'm not going to replicate it exactly. But I'm still going to go to whoever's sign was and say, hey, I have somebody questioning about making this sign. Like, I will change it, but I just want to make sure that that's okay with you, that I use your sign as like my inspiration for their sign. And I mean, I've never ran into an issue where they're like, no, don't do that. But I think it just depends. I don't know. I think we have a good group here. I think that our community is, for the most part, really encouraging and aren't going to see that as stepping on somebody's toes. It's not like you're going out and saying, oh, so-and-so is talking to this person, I'm going to steal them and take their money. Like, that's not what it is.
Well, I think the other thing, I think there's a limited, like when you're talking about signs, there's a limited number of ways that you can go. At the same point, there's unlimited variations within those same things. So,
And we all might work at different budgets too. Like we might have different prices. So if somebody comes to me and my price is too high and they go to somebody else who is able to do it for a lesser cost, I'm not going to fault the artist for that. Like that's on me for price, like that's what I chose to price my work at. If somebody can't afford it, they can't afford it. Like, I don't know.
well, that's fair. I mean, that is something we think about, and we've talked about this numerous times. Not you and I, but just people in general. It's my wife and I had a disagreement because where she works, they need a desk, a specific desk. Like I went and measured stuff out, and I said, "This is the price I'm going to give them," and she goes, "That's not. I don't like the way you're pricing that." I'm like, "That's the way I price these things."
Right?
Like,
Yeah, that's what it's going to cost.
Right? I can't work around that. So it is a big thing. So coming back, because I want to come back to this scroll saw stuff, because I literally know nothing about scroll saw. You're the third person I've talked to about scroll sawing, and I know nothing about it still. So how do you go from doing the Mosaic to into these really cool, intricate scroll saws?
I just did, I think. I don't know. I still don't necessarily feel like I would consider myself a like strictly scroll saw artist because I feel like I do so much more, and mosaics will always be my like, I don't want to say my bread and butter, but they're always there. I love to do them. They're my favorite thing to do. I think I talk about it fairly often. Like anytime I'm feeling like I'm in a funk or I don't know what to do in the shop or my head is too loud, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make a mosaic because I can just shut off my brain and just use the creative side, and it like fastest way to get me out of a funk easy. The scroll saw does have same sort of thing, it does the same thing, but it's just different too. It still for me requires a lot more focus and thought. I can't really turn my brain off as much as I can when I do a mosaic. But I think that's also kind of one of those things where like figuring out what you want to do for art, I knew I wanted to include this other element to add to my work. And one thing I was noticing too is like, not everybody's going to want a mosaic on their wall.
Right.
So I don't want to pigeonhole myself into this place where it's like, I can't sell to everyone. If you came to my shop and you're like, that's really cool, but I wouldn't really hang that up. So I wanted to have something else to offer. And then, I mean, I really did fall in love with the scroll saw too, as far as what you can do with it. I don't know that I answered the question. I kind of squirreled there for a minute.
I was looking over here. Oh, that's what it was. My friend Victor Woodforge, he said earlier, he's like, I love to make. It's hard to choose a niche, and I think that's really it's very pertinent. It's very important. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself. Pigeonhole. You don't want to be stuck in that one thing. I love that you said that you feel it helps you relax, like you can get into that and just turn yourself off.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to focus on one thing, again, when not everybody wants to buy that one thing. So you do have to be out there.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, I think I'm a person that really likes to learn. Like I really like to push myself and learn new skills. So the mosaics, I mean, once you kind of get the hang of it, it's really just you're on your miter saw cutting angles.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to it outside of that. So learning, stuff on the scroll saw or even like milling up wood, things that I never really would have thought when I decided to get into woodworking that I would have to learn how to use a joiner. But like all of those things, I feel like I'm just somebody, I think I just want to learn, and I always want to do something different and expand my skills. So why not try another tool?
Yeah. I mean, I love tools. So
right.
Here's a question sort of related. I'm curious about this. Do you like to do puzzles?
I do love to do puzzles. Actually, I have a funny story, sort of. I recently went through a divorce, so I am splitting custody of my kids. And they're on the nights that they're not with me for the last couple months, I've been like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I would walk around my house aimlessly. Like,
Yeah.
I seriously, like, I'd walk from room to room. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it's been so cold that I don't want to get out into the shop and work at night because I'm freezing. So I bought a puzzle. I just went to Target and was like, I bought this 1,000-piece puzzle. It was all over my dining room table. So I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I bought one of those puzzle boards that
Yeah.
is on the Lazy Susan and has the drawers that come out of the side of it.
Oh, wow.
And I sat and did a Mandalorian puzzle for like a week and a half.
Oh, that's cool.
It was fun. I would put on Grey's Anatomy on my laptop and do my puzzle. I'm like, I am officially old.
But the reason I ask, so one of the things I'm most proud of is that when we redid our kitchen, I made my floor. I love this. $150. I bought 180 boards, rustic lumber boards that were 3/4 inch thick,
Mhm.
2 to 3.5 inches wide, 4 feet long, and I milled them all tongue and groove, cut them.
Wow.
I mean, I did everything, and I started to install it. And I told my wife, I'm like, this won't take much time. I'm going to put them in. The problem was that the wood itself, there was cherry and walnut and spalted maple and curly maple. Like, there's hickory in there, all stuff, right? And so I started putting it down, and I went, okay, this one's 2 inches, and I need this 2 inches, but does this look good together? And my wife came in, and she loves to do puzzles. I hate puzzles. She comes, we're going to lay this out. Okay, I got this. I will lay these. You cut them. And I think the puzzling goes well with the mosaics. So that
It does. Yeah, the puzzling, but honestly, the puzzling I think goes well with scroll saw too.
Yeah.
Because you're taking the pieces, you're cutting something apart and then like putting it back together in a different way, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. So my buddy Brian over here, he said the hardest question I get asked, and I agree with this 100%. The hardest question I get asked is, what do you make? Right?
I'd say art.
Well, I like that. I don't say.
I usually just say art. Lots of art, a little bit of furniture. And then I'll whip out my phone and I start showing Instagram or, scroll through my camera roll. Cause that's actually one thing I feel like I need to get better at is every time I go to show somebody my Instagram, I'm like, oh, look, here's this picture. But as soon as I click on it, it's a reel and it's moving. So I'm like, I need to post more photos so that I can have actual photos to show someone in those instances. But
I used to use Instagram as a sort of portfolio. Yeah. Now that's all it is here's this. So how did you go from creating, and I posted this on Facebook, so then you started posting on Instagram? Like, how did that go? Oh, I like that.
It went pretty well, I think. I instantly started following other makers in the community, and then I feel like once you're following other people that are doing the same kind of thing, you're getting inspiration, you're learning. I mean, I really did not know how to use tools when I started. I had never used a miter saw. I barely even knew how to use a drill. So everything that I feel like I learned from watching other people on Instagram. So I would see somebody doing this. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I want to try that. And then I would go and try something, So I think I didn't grow my Instagram super fast. It wasn't like I hopped on and just catapulted to however many followers. I think it was kind of a slow build. But the community was where I found the most fulfillment was meeting other people and then talking and bouncing ideas off or asking questions and just talking to other people that enjoyed doing the same thing that I did. But then I had a website built and I launched a website. I never did Etsy because I didn't feel like figuring out how to work it. But I did my own website and then I was just doing local events. And I feel like it eventually kind of took off to a point where I was making okay money. But again, at the time I was married and I was a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
So I never had to live off of my income. It was always just like everything went back into the business. Whatever I made, I was like, what new tool can I go buy today? So now within the last, I don't know, 6 months, I've really had to figure out like, okay, this is actually like, I have to live off of this now. So this is a real business now. It's not just fun money.
I feel that. Like that's last year my wife lost her job, and a year and a half ago, and when she lost her job, that's when I was like, okay, we got to make it work. Yeah, it's been interesting. I do want to say this. Suman said his response is professional sawdust maker. Every project
yes,
sawdust.
There you go.
Well, to be fair, my email signature is chief sawdust maker in charge.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. So how did your content creation, now that you're on Instagram, how did that influence your journey making? Now I know that you're learning to make tools, right? But did it influence your pathway in scroll saw art, in the mosaics? Did it influence how you started looking at jobs and what to look for?
Do you mean as far as for content creation specifically, or like for the art that I'm making?
However you want it to sound. I'm just thinking about in terms of, the content creation and what it does, how it helped influence you.
I don't know. I think maybe I'm not fully understanding your question, but
let's leave it alone.
I think that I just always tried to record everything that I was doing. Like if I was in the shop making something, I was going to record it and I was going to make a video about it. Or there was a time where I remember like track saw videos were all the rage. Like everybody was posting track saw videos, and Instagram used to be so different. You used to be able to get millions of views for posting a 3-second clip. So it was like, okay, well, if I'm using my track saw, then I know I'm going to get a shot of that because that's always going to perform well. Or there's certain clips that, like, if I'm sitting here with a sander,
right,
nobody wants to see that. That's not fun and exciting. But if I'm on a scroll saw or I'm cutting strips on a table saw, sure, I'll record that. And then some of the footage might be garbage and I won't use it, but I just kind of got used to having the camera always rolling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense because there's so many different clips and so many different ways to use it. I mean, although it is weird now whenever you make things, it's so much, it's the catharsis of making things without the camera now too, right? Like, I can just focus on this.
Yep. There was, I was doing something recently and I was just in a groove. I wasn't thinking about turning on the camera. And then once I was done, I was like, shit, that would have been really cool. But sorry, didn't happen.
Let me ask you this. Oh, speaking of which, somebody just logged on. Cristiano Jeff. I owe him a sign, and I gotta send him stuff. Thanks for seeing that name. What's your my friend Brian said, what's your favorite piece you've made?
My cowgirl. I am like, I want my cowgirl to find a home. I love her so much. And I think I priced her high because it was the very first Intarsia piece that I ever did. And I was like, I think I blew my own mind when I made it. I can't believe I did this. Like the way that it came together, I put the little like rope liner around it, and it was just like, I loved it. And it is currently hanging in a local like business. I have a bunch of my stuff hanging there. They were like, hey, if you want to decorate our walls, basically, you can sell it here and we won't charge you a percentage. It was like, perfect. And then I don't have to store it anywhere. So it's hanging there, just waiting for somebody to love it as much as I do.
It's just got to get the right eyes on.
It does. It does. I'm considering, actually, I have a drawing for a cowboy in the same kind of style. Yeah. Considering having them like facing away from each other. I mean, I guess you could face them together also. But I'm considering doing that. And then I'm like, will they sell as a pair? Like, does it just need a mate? Is that what's happening here?
It could be. I mean, one on each side of the fireplace. So let's talk about the piece that you just posted, because I love that, and I want to talk about your desk, this huge desk.
Yes, that was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I don't know if you saw, I didn't really post anything about it either. I just posted like one story post that it was actually in our local newspaper too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so the bookstore is a bookstore. I'm a big reader. So my kids and I have been to this bookstore since I moved here. We've just been going there. And one day I was in there and I can see the owner like eyeballing me. And I was like, what's up? Like, what's going on? He's like, I saw your woodworking on Instagram. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, we need a new desk. I was like, okay. So their desk that they had was so cool. It was, I have a picture of it somewhere. I can find it and post it. But he had books stacked on the floor in front of his desk, just up to the desktop. But he had signs everywhere that were like, do not touch, don't touch this. So come to find out, when I was talking to him, he built that desk when they opened 15 years ago. He built the cabinets, and he had 3 boxes for the cabinets, but they didn't have walls on them, or they didn't have backs on them.
Okay.
So the books in front, you could push them straight through into his cabinets. And, people come up and it's cool. It's like they come and take pictures of it. People will literally walk into that bookstore to take pictures of the desk, because it's kind of just one of those, everybody knows that he has a cool desk in there. So people want to touch it. But he wanted a new one. He wanted something that was more stable, something that was a little bit better built. And he knew a little bit enough about building to where he was like, this is kind of what my wife and I have decided. If you can do it with under this price, then we'll do it. And I was like, a really thoughtful budget. The number that you came up with is pretty on point. So that works. Let's do it. And there was a moment where I felt like I bit off a little bit more than I could chew, where I was like, can I do this? Can I actually do this? Because I'd built a bookshelf for myself before, but I'd never really built cabinets. So I was talking to a girlfriend of mine. She helped me mock it all on SketchUp. And she builds giant custom kitchens. And I'm like, but do I need a toe kick? Can I just because the toe kick part is just on his side. Do I actually need to put that in here? What do we need to do? So she saved me and really helped me come up with a plan, and she double checked all my numbers when I was going to cut everything. I outsourced the drawer boxes per her suggestion too. She's like, this company in Nashville will build the drawers for you. Don't waste your time. Just pay them to get it done. And it turned out beautifully. And the owner loved it. Another friend helped me get it all there, because I don't have a trailer and he has a trailer. So he helped me take it all in and carry everything inside. And the installation went perfect. It was one of those things where I felt like this is where it's going to go wrong. Everything went so well in my shop as I was putting it all together, that I was thinking, okay, but when I get when I get there and I'm installing it, this is when it's all going to hit the fan. Something's going to go wrong, but it didn't. It was perfect.
There it is. I'm trying to find a picture of it. See if I can. So I can, of course. So for people who are watching and listening, what's really important about this is that, number one, it has her mosaic top.
The mosaic top, yeah.
And for some reason, my phone has decided to. There you go. Can you show
the lights kind of?
The front of it is all covered in books.
Yeah.
And it looks amazing. It's really.
I've got a video here.
Let's see if I can turn my hand around. I'm trying to pause it, so I'm pausing it. So you guys can all see there are books along the front and the sides of this. There you go.
Yeah.
So So tell me about the books. Like, did you cut the books?
No, that thing is heavy. Uh, they're full solid books. So he had a storage unit that he just had all these boxes of books in that were either too damaged for him to sell or just books that he had like I think one box was all the same book. They were all just old books that he couldn't sell. So I went and loaded up the back of my truck with all these books. And one thing that we wanted to make sure was that they couldn't move, like, so I basically built a bookshelf for them. And initially I didn't put a back on it because I was thinking, well, I'll get all the books in there and then I'm going to use spray foam behind it to absorb any of the extra room so that they're not going to move. But I underestimated how heavy the books were actually going to be, and that I really needed a back on it to keep the cabinet secure. So I did have to like take half the books off at one point and redo that to get the back on there. But I just would glue a row of books down and then glue the next row down. And then I would, get 3 or 4 rows in, and then I would stick spray foam back in between so that it would kind of act like an adhesion towards the back. So they aren't all tipping forward out of the bookshelf once it's done.
That's smart. I wouldn't have thought about the spray foam. I saw it. Honestly, I didn't realize that. I thought you would cut off like an inch or two of each book.
Nope.
Oh my God.
All books. Yeah.
That's got to be incredibly heavy. It looks amazing. Brett, Ryan, a couple of people said that it looks amazing. It looks like such a fantastic piece. Yeah, it's just gorgeous. And I can see that. I can see that on Pinterest and other people see it.
Yeah, I should post it on Pinterest actually.
You haven't yet? I mean,
I have I think my Instagram auto posts to Pinterest, but I don't think I've posted a still photo.
Yeah.
And then I need to go in and actually do it on Pinterest where it links back to my website, because I don't know that Instagram does that.
So I don't use Pinterest at all. How do you use that? Do you normally use that as a inspiration or as a way to get leads?
I use it mostly as inspiration, but I did start posting my own stuff on there. The love triangle, that's where that first took off, was Pinterest, where I was like, what is all this traffic coming to my website? It was Pinterest. But yeah, you can set up your Instagram to where it automatically will link to Pinterest. Whatever you post there will transfer over. But with Pinterest too, you also have to be able to make sure that each pin links back to your website.
All right.
So I don't know. I'd have to go and check that, if that does that through the Instagram auto post, or if it only does that when you manually input it.
I got to figure it out. Suman had 2 things. One question he asked was, we'll come back to the question. He did say that, dang, that has to be heavier than a Yo Mama joke. Joe asked, what is the finish on the tabletop?
So the mosaic for the bookshelf, I used Rubio. I knew it is a high traffic area, but he also, we had talked about maybe doing epoxy because it's a bookshelf. It's his countertop.
Yeah.
So customers come in, they set their books down and they slide it across to him to scan it. So with the grooves in the mosaic, we didn't want the book jackets to get stuck or any pages to get ripped, and then he's having to damage out all of these books. So I had initially thought about just doing an epoxy flood coat.
Yeah.
But those don't really last. They get a scratch and then they start to look like crap. And I didn't want that to have to be something that we would have to fix, because that mosaic is huge. I didn't want to have to make him another one in a couple of years. It started to get I wanted it to last. So I actually just put a piece of acrylic on the top of it.
Okay.
I went to Depot and I bought a big piece of acrylic and cut it down. And then I'm pretty sure he actually had glass doctors come out and make one too. But he was like, I like yours better. I'm going to put yours back on.
I was curious because it looked glossy, and I thought I thought you did have epoxy on it. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Brett asked, sorry.
Acrylic, but
I'm sorry. Brett was asking, I interrupted you and I'm very sorry. He says,
That's
do you
okay.
have a source to get reclaimed materials if you use that in your projects?
Not a reliable source. I've had a few sources here and there. An old neighbor was redoing a kitchen or a bathroom, I think. And so he had a bunch of lath that he was taking out. So he came and dropped all those off. I think I found a guy on Etsy once that was selling lath also. But I don't have like a consistent source. I actually found a lady on Facebook Marketplace that was selling the side of her barn that blew off in a storm.
wow.
She like, and the pile was huge. And I drove out there. She's like, you can take this entire pile for $50. Like, I'll take a truckload of whatever I can fit in my truck. And I think I wound up having to still take some of it to. So I was like, I can't store or use all of this.
I have stuff like that before too. Have you ever used weather wash?
Is that the finish that when you put it on, it like oxidizes?
Yeah, they have different stuff. It doesn't really. I don't think it really oxidizes. It's an aging stain, so maybe it oxidizes. I don't think so. I did a.
Hang on. If you're going to be out here, that's okay, but you cannot touch any buttons on the computer, okay? Okay, thank you. I can see him like creeping up.
Yeah, right. So Suman had asked what your favorite wood is if you could only use one, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to say white oak.
White oak or walnut? It really kind of depends, but okay, thank you. I think the versatility of white oak, because I can use so many different, like I can put different Rubio colors on it to get a different color if I needed one. So if I had to stick with one, it would have to be white oak.
So the reason I brought that up with the weather wash is that I used white oak when I had done a couple mosaics way back, and I used weather wash on that, and they have different types, and it actually is really cool. It I'm going to say oxidizes. I don't know what it does.
I don't know if that's, I feel like I've used it before. Now I want to look it up.
It's really cool stuff, and I think that's great for giving the look of reclaimed materials without necessarily having it.
I also think that what I noticed when I was using, yes, I have used weather wash before. What I noticed when I was working with a lot of the reclaimed lath is that instead of even attempting to stain it, I would burn it if I wanted it color, because the stain, you're never going to get like the stain in the bottle is never going to be what it's going to look like, because the wood itself has so much character and just like patina from being so old. Probably not the right word either, but we'll go with it. To where you could reliable stain.
Words. So yeah, well, I mean that's right. And what I like about this stuff is that it's not a stain. Is that it, as Decima, my buddy over here said, it ages the wood. And
it's reactive, I feel like.
Anyway. It's a good way for me that I think of to get the reclaimed look without having to do the reclaimed material. I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of different ways to do stuff. So, I can imagine that the last year has been kind of difficult for you. How do you keep inspired? How do you keep inspiration and going forward looking at this?
I mean, sometimes I don't, if I'm really, really honest. Like there's times that I do feel like especially within the last, I mean, it really has been 2 years of kind of chaos. So I do feel like there was a time where I was just going through the motions. And I think if you were to like scroll back to my Instagram like a year ago, I think you can see it. If I look back, or like, sometimes I'll get the like reminders of like 1 year ago, and I'm like, whew, I was in a dark place. But I think that for me, like we were talking about earlier, coming out into the shop and making a mosaic is like the fastest way for me to just shut my brain off. So it helped in that way to where I was like, maybe I don't actually feel like creating something, but I'm going to go and do it because I know that that's what I need. And actually that's kind of where my whole Collection X came from, which that's like, there's like a whole lore, I feel like, behind my Collection X, but I actually kind of channeled some of that like pain that I was going through into making a collection. And I called it the X collection. I had a bunch of like little hidden tidbits. Baby, go inside, please. I'm almost done, okay? Baby, please. No.
Well, she's talking.
Like you can't just.
No, trust me. So while she's talking, I do want to say to everybody, because we're, like I said, Instagram sometimes cuts off. Next week, I'm going to have Evan from Evan's Workshop on.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, everybody loves him. He's a great guy, great kid.
Yeah.
But he's going to be my guy for next week to talk about just charity build, moving into stuff. So, and if we get cut off here, if Instagram ends, you guys can always come over to YouTube, which is linked in my bio and everything else. I probably should have linked it in my stories, but I didn't. So anyway, back to the motivation.
I don't remember exactly where I was anyways, and my children are asking me for candy, so I got distracted. But
no, but you're talking about your X collection and how that.
Yeah, I used everything I was going through to kind of. I made a collection out of it, and I think I'm not okay. I don't even like to say this because I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I feel like I Taylor Swifted all of these like hidden things within the collection. And it felt like a way for me to tell my story a little bit without like telling my story, without putting all of the details out there. I was able to kind of process, and I was processing it in a way that felt creative and constructive as opposed to destructive. So that was really, I mean, I think I did take the better part of a year to come up with 12 different pieces because I was doing it in between other projects. And then I launched kind of all that. And it was like I called it Collection X, the art of letting go. And then I just let it, and it was what it was.
Collection X was your shake it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I can see, it's that artistry in you, right? It's what do you make? I make art. And that was your art release. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I can see how that would be cathartic.
It really was. And I think I questioned if it was too much as I was doing it, but I also wanted to make sure that it was like tastefully done. Looking back at it now, I'm like, no, it was not too much. But in the moment with like all of the heavy feelings, it was like, I don't know if this is going to go over very well. But for me, it was my way of processing and healing, honestly.
The best advice you ever got is you got to be you.
Yep, exactly.
So I like that. So I do want to take a side swipe here for a second, because there was something that we talked about earlier, business wise. And I'm curious about this. Now, you said you're never done Etsy. You have your webpage. How is that? Like, do you sell a lot through there? Is the traffic good? How do you get people to it?
Instagram is how I feel like most of my business comes from Instagram or word of mouth. But this year, or I guess last year, my like website sales were not as much as they were the year before. But that year before was when I had the like 80 love triangles in 3 months.
Right.
So, I mean, it does enough, and I feel like it's enough of a value to justify continuing to pay for it and continuing to have it there.
Right.
But I do think that a majority of my income is coming from custom signs or social media content is where I'm getting. I think that's going to be more lucrative for me than what I'm selling on my website. But I do want to have, and that's something I'm working on this year, is trying to have more lower priced items that I can just like cut on the laser and throw up on the website, so that I have something that, maybe somebody doesn't have the money to pay for a custom sign, but they can go and buy a $35 sign that I've cut on the laser.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out something for everyone. And I think that having the website allows me to do that better than just like posting it on Instagram.
I mean, I think it's difficult because one of the things I like about Etsy is that when you have stuff up there, they do the automatic
Yeah.
advertising if you choose it, but
Mhm.
people go to Etsy and it's tough having your own website and worrying about people finding you organically,
Yes.
buying from you, as opposed to only people coming to you from social media or something like that.
Right. And that's actually something I was thinking about recently because I have this big laser where I was like, why am I not using that to make myself money? So I started making more of those smaller signs. And I was thinking maybe I create a separate Etsy that's not necessarily Ashwood and Hawke, but like an Ashwood and Hawke company on Etsy. And then Etsy can push those smaller little signs that I can just kind of
Right.
keep that like something on the side. But again, I think it's just felt overwhelming to learn a new platform and figure that out to where I haven't done it yet, but I
Yeah.
probably should.
Well, again, the only reason I would suggest it is because even though so we looked at it, my wife and I looked at the money, and even though we're paying more in fees, we're getting more sales through them than we are through our Shopify page, right?
Yeah.
Because people go to Etsy and type in, I want this handmade item, I want this, right?
And then Etsy, I feel like will market for you, and then a certain thing takes off. It is smart. It's honestly just something I haven't taken the time to do.
A couple weeks ago, I had Ben Myers on here, and Ben has like 15,000 sales on Etsy, and yeah. To be fair, I think when we talked about it, 10,000 were from one particular thing, but right,
that's insane.
right, and it was a great talk about all of that. And
Yeah.
one of the things he said, and I've heard other people say this, is that you can also make multiple listings for the same thing, and make those listings
With
that.
like SEO.
Right, you might do different keywords, you might do a different title, and that way different people might see it.
That's smart.
Yeah. So I like this question. Logan Newman, thank you, Logan Newman, for this great question. He said, how do you start a workshop without much money? I know I have my answer. What's yours? Go. It was a race. Damn it.
I'm like, I don't know. I did it in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk briefly about that, because people who weren't on at the beginning, like, I think what you did is a great way to.
Yeah, you can start with hand-me-down tools. Borrow a tool from somebody. If you have a local makerspace, go check out your local makerspace and see what they have there. I know we have a great one in Asheville. Facebook Marketplace. You can find used tools on Facebook Marketplace all the time.
All the time.
But you don't need a lot. You really don't need a lot of, like, I know some people that don't have a table saw in their shop and they are building mosaics and they're cutting down their mosaics with a jigsaw. And to me, I'm just like, that's wild that you're doing that. But like, they're getting it done and their overhead costs are so much lower that you're probably making a lot more money because you can go and buy all these fancy tools.
I mean, I would recommend, if you're doing a lot of mosaics, at least to get a miter saw.
Right. Yes, you definitely need I mean, I guess you could use like I don't know. There's ways to do it, but I think you start slow, figure out the one tool that you need, buy that tool, and then you can slowly start to build from there. But I don't know. You don't need the fancy tools, all the tools. You don't need all of that to start. You just need to start.
It's interesting because a lot of people that I've talked to, same type of thing, we picked up this tool on Facebook Marketplace or wherever.
Yeah.
I have this one suggestion. This is my big thing that we talked about this 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. I'm a huge fan of Harbor Freight for the simple fact that you can buy tools cheaply. Mm-hmm. And if they're cheap enough, it doesn't matter if you break them because you're learning how to use it.
Right.
So So you use it, you break it, you're like, okay, I know what I liked, I know what I didn't like. Now I'm going to go spend the money and get something good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brian said if you watch Marketplace long enough, you can get every tool you need for cheap.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And especially if you don't mind putting some effort in to clean it up.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
then once you've outgrown that, that's what I did with my scroll saw. Actually, I bought my used Delta. I think I bought it off Marketplace. Once I got to the point where I was like, okay, this thing is not like, I'm not going to get any better operating on a tool. The arm of the tool was just like slamming down like this. I was like, okay, I'll sell it. I sold it in a garage sale. So the guy
yeah,
driving by, like, okay, I'll take that. But now I have a little bit of money from this that I can go and use towards buying another tool. So you can buy the cheap tools until you're ready to outgrow those and then get something else.
well, and that's the other part. You take the money from the sale of the tool
Mhm.
or other things and build up. So
Yeah.
when I bought the Festool TS75 track saw because I wanted the depth of the Festool 75, and when I bought it, I had the Makita, which I
Mhm.
liked. But what I did is I sold the Makita and that was half the cost of the Festool. So I
Yeah.
saved, yeah. And as Evan said, he still doesn't even have a table saw. So
And
you
look
don't
at what you're doing. You don't need it.
no, absolutely. I mean, there's so many good things to do. I
Yeah.
love that. So where do you see all of this right now? You're starting the business and you're looking at it more as a business, right? How do you see it moving forward? Where do you see your growth? What would you like to see? How's that?
I really want to start doing more custom work. I've had a lot of fun with like the logos that I've been making lately. So I really enjoy doing that. But I honestly like the cabinet, the bookshelf thing. I would love to do more installation type things like that in local stores. Um, but one thing that I'm also really thinking about doing is offering classes. And especially, we have a huge homeschool community here, and I know that there's a big desire for some of these homeschool kids to learn woodworking.
Right.
I think there's a market there. There's just some like kind of red tape stuff I'd have to figure out to do that. But I do think that would be fun, especially when it's warm enough outside to have, people out in the driveway. Because my shop is pretty small, so I don't have enough room to have a bunch of people in here. But um, those are kind of my, just like off the top of my head, things that I want to do this year. Mostly I would love to just do more custom stuff. Like I want people to seek me out because they like the work that I'm doing, and I
Right.
want to bring their ideas to life or their logos to life. That
I mean,
for me.
there's a lot of opportunity, and it all depends on people. I hate to say it, it always depends on people seeing your work, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And getting out there and getting the word out. So, I mean, you're doing a great job. Your social media is, what are you at 90, 98? You're almost at 100,000, aren't you?
I think it's 93, but yeah, close.
We'll say it's 98. I'm going to say that.
You'll give it to me.
Yeah. Listen, it's been so hard. I mean, I
It
think
really,
wait, so how long have you been at around 93?
I feel like it's been a long time. So it was really slow. I feel like when I first started, I was like, I sat around 1,000 followers for a while. And then I had a couple videos go pretty big on Instagram and on TikTok. And I went from like 1,000 up to 50,000. And I feel like 3 months, maybe. It was just like, I felt like it went so fast. And then I feel like it's just been this slow trickle of like, I maybe get 10,000 here or something like that. But lately it's been going down. So, that's fun.
Yeah, I had a negative 160 one day.
It blows my mind because it'll be like, you got 537 new followers this week, but you lost 567. I'm like, why? Where are people going? Like,
I don't know. I think it's people leaving Instagram. I think it's people
yeah.
with dead accounts. So one person said classes would be awesome. I like this. I think your work would be awesome as like backsplashes in bathrooms and more home decor that's not necessarily signs too. I
That would
think
be
that would be
really
really
cool.
cool.
I
Yeah.
would love to do like more wall installations like that. And actually, I don't know if I want to say this. I don't want to give somebody else my idea. Okay, I'm going to say it. I really want to do, this has been like a bucket list for me. You know, like the old trucks that have the wooden beds?
Yeah,
I want to do a mosaic. I want to find somebody that's doing a truck renovation and has a truck
that'd
that
be
they
cool.
want to put a wooden bed in, and I want to do a mosaic.
That'd be really cool.
So if anybody out there is renovating a truck, let me know.
That would be amazing. So Suman moved into a question that I am often uncomfortable asking. Not in any like weird way.
Yeah.
Not like this person who said, "Did I miss Logan's announcement about his gender transition to female?" I didn't want to admit that, but yeah, I've decided to. Suman asked, "Do you have any interest in expanding into more sponsored content?"
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's tough. How do you tell me how you really feel about sponsored content? You're like, yes. Tell me.
I don't see anything like it doesn't bother me. I know that some people are very much like, sorry, I'm posting sponsored content. Like you're gonna see all of this from me. Like I don't care. Post it. Make money. We're all posting on this thing to begin with. So why not get money if somebody's willing to pay you for it? I will say though, like I recently posted, I had a company reach out and offer a product to me. We like negotiated the whole payment. I told them what my content plan was, and then it came and it didn't work. And so I was like, hey, this isn't working on the material that I'm trying to use it on. And they're like, oh yeah, it's not for wood. Like that was like the whole point that
You
we
were
were talking about.
about
We wanted to move this wood mosaic. And he's like, yeah, sorry about that. Let's just leave it as is. We're not going to pay you. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm not going to talk about your product online. Like, I'm not going to post about it.
right.
A, it doesn't work, but B, like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So I will never take on any sort of paid, like, content or paid promotion for something that I wouldn't use. Like that's my hard and fast rule. But I also think like there's so many companies out there that will email me and say like, hey, we want to send you this. Can you post about it? Can you post a reel? And to me, it's like, I'd love to if you want to pay me. I'm at the point where I don't want a bunch of free stuff. And I actually saw this thing and it was kind of snarky, but I loved it. It's like, I'm not at a position to, how was it worded? Work for free for something that will make you money.
Right.
Like I'm not going to post something on my page to promote your business to make you money if you're not valuing my time and my experience too. Like let's figure out a number here.
It's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
This is where like some of my uncomfortableness is in specifically talking about it because so last year I had a mower. I had an electric mower, battery operated mower, and I used it and I was like, this is really cool. I'm very excited. And I used it. And after about the second or third time using it, the back wheel stopped working. And I'm like, I reached out to them and I wound up taking it off. I said,
Yeah.
I can't do this. And I took the video down. I've got this watch and I like this a lot. And the company sent it to me and I said, yeah, do you want to watch? I said, yeah, I'm happy to try it out. I said, if I like it, I'll post about it since they don't want to pay me anything for it. And they have been emailing me asking when I'm going to post. I'm like, I'll get around to it. I don't have time for it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't pay me. So I feel very uncomfortable doing that. But on the other hand, that is part of the business.
Right. And I think if you set the expectation of like, I am happy to post about it if I like it, but I'm going to test it out and see. I feel like I also have started telling people like, I can't prioritize posting content that I'm not being paid for. So I can't make it a priority. I'll get to it when I get to it, but it's not going to be if it's something that I really want, like if somebody's, offering me a tool that I want or need, then I might approach it differently. But if somebody's like, hey, we'll send you, a pair of eyewear,
Yeah.
like awesome.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you. I'll post it when I can.
So Suman says, I've got the same strategy, Ashley. It's paid or nothing with very, very rare exceptions. And I think your exceptions are really important. Number one, it's a size thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're sending me a phone case, okay, yeah, that's not. But if it is something that I really want that's going to help my shop, and then someone else said, dumb stuff from Trevor. What about fancy pocket hole machines with your name on them? I don't think that's fair. I don't think getting called out for that. They approached me, and I could not argue with that.
Yeah, sometimes it works, and then sometimes like I had a paid campaign to where they reached out to me and I was like, this is a little weird, but it's $600. Yeah, I'll do it. And it was for a restaurant. They were like, hey, go eat at our restaurant. You pay for your own food, but post a video about it and we'll pay you $600. And I was like, done. I'll do it. Like, and I think sometimes will you be able to look at my content and see like that was paid. She was probably doing that for money. Maybe, but you know what? I got to pay my bills. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. And I will say that if they want to send me money to go eat at a restaurant, I have no problem doing that.
I have to eat anyways. I have to feed my kids.
Hey, that's a date night. Trevor, I appreciate that. It is really cool. I got to do some more videos about it. He asked Logan Newman again, what is your job outside of woodworking? And I think it's just woodworking, right?
It is. I currently have a part-time job. I work 2 days a week at a furniture store in Nashville. So we're building big live edge tables.
Okay.
I may transition into doing hair a couple days a week because I really don't have a ton of days available to work outside the home because I do have my kids and I homeschool my kids. So they're with me all the time. All the time that I have them. That's not fair to say they're with me all the time because they do go see their dad. But I don't have a ton of time available to work outside the shop. So this is my job and I have something else part-time.
I meant to ask earlier, your background, do you have any, did you go straight into doing hair cutting or did you go to haircut school right out of high school? Was there something in between?
There was a semester of a state college in California where I just basically drank my face off and then was like, this is not for me.
I mean, yeah, your liver at some point will eventually say, okay, that needs to end.
Yeah, and I had no real goal of what I wanted to do. I think I applied under an obscure major because I was like, well, you have a better chance of getting in if you're not going for like business or ecology or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll pick something random. Earth sciences, perfect. Do I know what that means? No. Did I ever take any classes in it? Absolutely not.
Well, the only reason I asked honestly was because you said you see yourself as an artist, and a lot of times people had an art background.
I consider hair to be art, honestly. I do think that it's an artistic expression. A lot of times, color was my thing, so I was painting hair.
Yeah.
I think it's an artistic form. I think I've always been a creative person, but I don't have any like formal art training.
Okay. Well, Tim from Gears and Fire said he needs a haircut. He'll trade sanding time for a haircut. And I think that's
Perfect.
it. Yeah. If you were near me, I would do the same thing as well.
We'll just have shop haircuts.
I got a haircut the other day. It was one of my best haircuts in a while. So last thing, if you had one piece of advice someone gave you at the beginning that would have made a huge difference for you, what would you say to somebody else?
It's a hard one. I think the biggest thing, and there's a little bit more backstory to this too if we have time, but like I really think the biggest thing is just start, just do it. Like don't second guess yourself. If you find yourself with like the desire to get into this sort of creator maker world, just do it. Stop looking at people and thinking, oh, I could never do that, I could never be as good as them. Like we all have to start somewhere, and the faster that you become the beginner and start, you'll grow out of being the beginner faster than if you just sit there thinking like, oh man, maybe one day I'll try that.
I like that. I mean, that's 100% it, right?
Yeah, I think we can all look at stuff and be like, man, I wish I would have done that sooner, or I wish I would have started sooner, or not like doubted myself for so long, and who knows where I would be. But
Right.
if you just do it and just try, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to realize, maybe that wasn't for me.
Well, I mean, it's the expression, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Yeah.
My personal favorite that I've said on here before is from actually when I read Lord of the Rings in 5th grade, is it's the job never started that takes the longest to finish, right? It's the same idea.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do something, do it.
You have to start. Yep.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I had such a fantastic time, despite some of the conversations we had over here. And some of the comments at the beginning, people did like your tattoos and mentioned those.
Which is so funny because I feel like you can't see any of my, like there's some on my fingers, but it's always funny to me when people notice my tattoos and I feel like you can't see them.
Well, I mean, a couple, like when you're standing next to your one piece, you're standing up there and you could see the whole legs.
Oh yeah, I thought I was just talking about in this video in particular, like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm hoping those are people who followed you. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you for being here, everyone. And bye, Logan. I wish you would stop saying what you're saying. Joe, thank you for being here. I'm ending on Instagram. There we go.
Okay, bye.
And then, as we say goodbye here, again, thank you. And Joe, Evan, thank you guys for being here. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you.